To me, poetry matters. It always has. In difficult moments, it's been a way to release tension, to sort through thoughts, to give shape to emotions that don't easily come out. Sometimes just writing something down, an idea, a feeling, can slowly take on a life of its own and become a poem. And in that process, something shifts. This is something I believe deeply, and I tried to capture it in a poem of my own. Poetry matters. Words that rhyme in heart and mind like April showers that drizzle on flowers. Words that bend in a soft wind with their vowels and strong syllables, holding them still. Words that drift slowly and beg to be read as they fill pages and pages of a book to be bled, of its black India ink on white weathered paper. Words that swirl through the air as kites soaring in flight, or butterflies landing in sight on flower petals as light as dewdrops in the rain, with the color of glass. Poetry matters when one wants to express ideas and throw feelings of joy or anger in the air and tell all of the wonder. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to A Lyric Cornucopia. This is your host, Luisa Morales. In this episode, number 153, I continue exploring the healing power of poetry, how a few carefully chosen words can help us navigate some of life's most difficult moments. Today, you'll hear a collection of poems shared by others, voices that have turned to poetry in times of struggle, reflection, and renewal. Some are in Spanish, others in English, but all carry something deeply personal, stories of challenge, resilience, and the quiet strength that poetry can offer. Along the way, I'll also share a bit about two of the poets behind these works, giving us a deeper understanding of the voices that continue to inspire us. Poetry crosses not only experiences, but languages. The next poems, shared in Spanish, come from voices that have turned to poetry in times of crisis and reflection. This first poem reflects on time, choice, and personal responsibility in shaping one's life. It compares life to a trip on a train. Along the way, each person chooses whether to take action or simply go along for the ride. As the journey continues, days pass with meaning, and people decide whether to get off the train or remain as passengers. In the end, when the journey reaches its destination, each stage closes, and the experiences leave behind questions. Each person must then choose whether or not to reflect on and answer those questions. Listen carefully to the reader, the poet herself, and the meaning she gives to her poem.
Días. Los días llegan con un propósito, como un tren que recorre la vida. Cada vagón es una edad, cada estación es una meta. Cada cual decide si bajar o no. Los días pasan con un propósito, como un tren que recorre la vida. Cada vagón es una etapa, cada estación es una experiencia. Cada cual decide si guiar o ser pasajero. Los días terminan con un propósito, como un tren que llega a su destino. Cada vagón cerró sus puertas, cada estación es una pregunta. Cada cual decide si contestar o no.
The poet who wrote the poem you just heard had been subjected to blows in life, either physically or emotionally, one of which was the passing of an older sister. These events inspired her to write this particular poem, which will eventually become part of a poetry collection to be published in the near future. In this next poem, the reader had gone through a painful situation. The poem he chose to read was written by Pablo Neruda. It aptly reflects the emotional state he was experiencing. The poem expresses deep sadness after the loss of a loved one. The speaker reflects on a past relationship, remembering moments of love, intimacy, and connection, but now facing the pain of separation. As he looks at the night sky, he feels her absence even more strongly. He struggles between saying he no longer loves her and admitting that part of him still does. The poem highlights how love can be brief, but the memory and pain of losing it lasts much longer. In the end, the speaker accepts that she is gone and may belong to someone else, and he tries to let go, even though the sadness remains. Listen to his reading. Can you feel the loss?
Poema 20 de Pablo Neruda. Puedo escribir los versos más tristes esta noche. Escribir, por ejemplo, la noche está estrellada y tiritan azules los astros a lo lejos. El viento de la noche gira en el cielo y canta. Puedo escribir los versos más tristes esta noche. Yo la quise y a veces ella también me quiso. En las noches como esta la tuve entre mis brazos. La besé tantas veces bajo el cielo infinito. Ella me quiso. A veces yo también la quería. ¿Cómo no haber amado sus grandes ojos fijos? Puedo escribir los versos más tristes de esta noche. Pensar que no la tengo. Sentir que la he perdido. Oír la noche inmensa, más inmensa sin ella. Y el verso cae al alma como el pasto el rocío. ¿Qué importa que mi amor no pudiera guardarla? La noche está estrellada y ella no está conmigo. Eso es todo. A lo lejos alguien canta, a lo lejos. Mi alma no se contenta con haberla perdido. Como para acercarla, mi mirada la busca, mi corazón la busca, y ella no está conmigo. La misma noche que hace blanquear los mismos árboles, nosotros, los de entonces, ya no somos los mismos. Ya no la quiero, es cierto, pero cuando no la quise. Mi voz buscaba el viento para tocar su oído. De otro, será de otro, como antes de mis besos. Su voz, su cuerpo claro, sus ojos infinitos. Ya no la quiero, es cierto, pero tal vez la quiero. Es tan corto el amor y es tan largo el olvido, porque en noches como esta la tuve entre mis brazos. Mi alma no se contenta por haberla perdido. Aunque este sea el último dolor que ella me causa y estos sean los últimos versos que yo le escribo.
When I asked him why he chose that particular poem by Pablo Neruda, he said that the poem had captivated him from the moment he read it. It stayed with him through moments of heartbreak when he thought he would be trapped in sadness. But it taught him that the memory always remains and that sometimes it takes longer to forget the memories of love than it did to live them. Ah, the memories of a heartbreak. The next poem deals with memories too, of a slightly different nature. When a person is close to celebrating a milestone, such as a 50th birthday, a pause to reflect is a must. I asked this poet why he wrote it, and he told me that at the moment he wrote the poem, he did so as a personal reflection on the celebration of reaching half a century of life. I'll paraphrase what he said. 50 years is a number that makes a strong impact. It makes you pause and look at what you have done in your life. It leads you to feel grateful for what you have and to reflect on all the experiences that have helped you grow and brought you to that moment. Listen to how he expresses his reflection through poetry.
A ti por amarme. Ha transcurrido casi medio siglo desde que me diste la vida, siempre a mi lado, aunque no te conociera. Has estado conmigo a cada instante, en los momentos más felices, en los momentos más difíciles, en los momentos de crisis. Me has sostenido siempre, sin yo darme cuenta. No me has abandonado. Me has hecho sentir tu presencia una y otra vez de distintas formas, todas maravillosas, dejando saber que tienen un propósito, una razón de ser para preparar mi espíritu y mi ser para cada misión asignada. No es a mi tiempo, es al tuyo. Eso lo aprendí cuando no entendía tus designios y los momentos de preparación que me brindabas. Me tomó mucho tiempo entenderlo, pero aprendí a ser paciente, a escucharte, a dejar que te manifestaras y confiar en ti. Hoy me siento pleno. A pesar de no ser perfecto, Me brindas muchos regalos, la vida, mi madre, mi hermanita, mis sobrinos ahijados, mi vocación, un sinnúmero de experiencias personales y profesionales, mi comunidad escolar, mi familia, mis amigos, mis compañeros, mis colegas, mis conocidos y todos aquellos que, aunque no me han deseado el bien y me han hecho daño, han aportado mi crecimiento espiritual y personal. Gracias por amarme tal y cual soy, con mis virtudes y defectos, por dar tu vida por mí aún sin conocerme y sin ninguna condición. Gracias, Padre, por ser mi luz, fuente de inspiración y sabiduría. Gracias a ti por amarme.
The poem you just heard was a heartfelt expression of gratitude to God for a lifetime of unconditional love and guidance. The speaker reflects on nearly 50 years of life, recognizing that even without always being aware, God has been present through both joyful and difficult moments. Over time, the speaker learns patience, trust, and acceptance of divine timing. The poem highlights a deep sense of fulfillment, acknowledging the many blessings in life, family, vocation, relationships, and even challenges that contributed to personal and spiritual growth. In the end, it is a sincere thank you for being loved completely, despite imperfections, and for having a constant source of light, wisdom, and purpose. How lovely. Now let's go to a poem chosen by one of my younger listeners and also one of my former students. Her choice is one by a young female poet, Celia Martinez. It's a poem that inspired her to write her own poetry. It opened up a world of free verse as well as showing her the beauty of longer, expansive poems. Listen and let your imagination take flight.
We'd Be Perfect Together by Celia Martinez. We'd be perfect together. What makes you say that? Because my heart met yours and opened a big welcome mat. Please come in, I said, hesitantly and scared. I'm sorry if it's a bit messy, I didn't have time to get prepared. And yeah, it was messy. Dishes in the sink, tear-stained notebooks, pens uncapped with dry ink. Mismatched socks, dust bunnies in the air, unfolded laundry, a tangled mess of hair. Novels left scattered, plants suddenly wilted. The frames on my walls were all horribly tilted. And you walked in, took a look at what you found, and I patiently waited for you to turn back around. But instead you smiled and said, I love what you've done with the place, and then grabbed my hand when you saw the look on my face. You smiled even larger, let's fill this place with laughter, and I said, but I should probably clean. You shook your head and said, after. And God, I laughed. I saw the windows open. I caught the exact second that I suddenly let hope in. And then I cleaned. As we danced in the room, you put away my laundry as I spun around a room. New pens on the table, so you never stop writing. Tears turned happy, suddenly my heart is inviting. Suddenly there's growth, vines up walls, suddenly I'm the person that texts and calls. And I said, but what about your heart? You've done so much for me. And I hear a noise filled with the utmost glee. My heart is the basement. My heart is the ceiling. My heart is the thing that you keep on stealing. My heart is a house that you've turned into a home. And I was just as messy, but you showed me that I wasn't alone.
Wasn't that beautifully read? Poetry has a way of making us feel better. Whether we read or write a poem, it's a therapeutic process. And as I had said in my poem, Poetry Matters, when one wants to express ideas and throw feelings of joy or anger in the air, what better way than through poetry, right? Before I conclude this episode, I would like to briefly mention some facts about Pablo Neruda and Celia Martinez. Pablo Neruda, born in Chile in 1904, was a celebrated poet, diplomat, and politician who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1971. He is recognized as the most significant Latin American poet of the 20th century. His most famous work, 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair, published in 1924, is considered a significant contribution to the Romantic tradition of poetry, expressing the complexities of young love, perhaps better than many other works. Celia Martinez, a Yale graduate, bilingual Mexican-American poet, is known for her vulnerable romantic poetry. She has built a devoted following on social media by sharing deeply personal poems about love, heartbreak, longing, and the difficulties of modern romance. Her debut collection, Diary of a Romantica, Volume 1 and 2, established her as a generational voice for hopeless romantics navigating contemporary relationships. Oh, and I mustn't forget to express my gratitude towards my colleagues and former student who took the time to share their creativity through poetry. Teresita, Rafael, Pedro, and Isadora. Thank you. Well, listeners, that's a wrap for this special bilingual episode on Poetry Part 2. I hope you enjoyed it. As usual, any recommendations or comments may be addressed through the podcast app or via email at aliterary@gmail.com. Until then, remember to keep the light of imagination burning. This is your host, Luisa Morales, wishing you, as always, happy reading, listening, and writing.